off the northwest coast of Africa. 9 are inhabited, and we visited 6. It was uninhabited until the 15th century when Portuguese explorers discovered and colonised the islands. Throughout the 16th and 17th century it grew prosperous as a result of the slave trade. The end of slavery in the 19th century led to economic decline and emigration. Cape Verde achieved independence in 1975 and is one of the most developed countries in Africa. It has few natural resources and its income mainly comes from tourism and foreign investment. One of the 2 international airports in Cape Verde is in Sal, and lots of tourists come to Sal. A lot of French tourists actually, primarily for beach holidays, where they mainly stay in Santa Maria, which is a coastal resort with sandy beaches and all the usual sort of holiday kind of activities. We actually stayed in Espargo, which is the capital city of, or capital town of Sal, and visited the sites there. There are several walking opportunities in Cabo Verde, and one is to Baracona, which is actually the coastline that you've been observing in the video so far. The other place to visit is Pedro de Luna salt mine. You enter it through a tunnel and then look down on lots of salt evaporation ponds built on top of a large crater. These natural salt ponds are formed through infiltration of water from the sea. Sal Island was a major salt producer and exporter in the 18th century. Although you can now still visit the salt mines and people are still harvesting salt from there, as you can see, it's not a major salt exporter now. In fact, it hardly exports any salt. What people now do is go and swim or float in one of the salt ponds, and you can take your swimming costume and pay to go and swim there or soak there if you want. It looks quite good fun. I forgot to take my swimming costume, so I didn't actually get to do it, but it looks quite good fun to do. Island is a truly amazing, otherworldly place. It's just incredible to visit. It was discovered in 1460 by the Portuguese, who named it Fogo, which is the Portuguese name for fire, a name that's well deserved. The volcano on Fogo Island erupts frequently, the latest being in 2014-15. This eruption started on the 23rd of November 14 and lasted until early February 15. It spread about 3 kilometres, the lava did, and that meant that it obliterated the vast bulk of the houses that were in the caldera. Most of the 1,000 population were evacuated, and they gradually started returning in 2016. Houses and hotels were rebuilt, and it is therefore possible to stay in the caldera and climb Pico Fogo, which is the highest point in Cape Verde, and you can also visit the site of the 2014-15 eruption. It was really quite amazing to look at the houses being constructed and on top of the lava, and to look at what happened. I mean, you just saw there a house that had lava flowing through half of it, the other half was clear, and people were actually living in the half that was clear, which I just found quite incredible. So we stayed 2 nights in the caldera, and we in a little kind of round building which was part of the Hotel Marisca. On the middle day we climbed Pico Fogo, the highest point. That was quite an amazing journey. It takes you about 3 hours or more to climb to the top of the mountain, which is actually an active volcano. The descent, on the other hand, takes about 20 minutes. You get to this point where you're in this amazing black volcanic ash, and you basically ski run down it, which was just such excellent fun. It was one of the best ski runs I've ever had, and certainly the very best for a very long time. And it actually takes you right down to the site of the 2014-15 volcanic eruption, which you can now see. You can also see the walls of the original volcano. So what you're actually experiencing is being in the middle of this kind of circle, or almost circle of a volcano, and then you come across smaller sort of eruptions, and you can smell a little bit of the sulphur, etc. The eastern side of the volcano collapsed into the sea about 73,000 years ago, and so therefore it's possible to walk from the caldera down to the coast, which is what we did, and that was really good fun as well. I should say that the caldera is actually very fertile, and they have a winery in the caldera. I don't think it creates huge quantities of wine, so I don't think there's much exported. However, you can actually drink local wine while you're sitting in your hotel on the top of the lava flow. So when we completed the walk down to the coast, we were picked up by taxi, and the taxi driver took us along the coastline so that we could explore some of the other beautiful aspects of Fogo Island. He stopped at various places en route to let us see the sea and to etc. So although the highlight of the trip to the island is obviously the caldera, and for me climbing the highest point in Cape Verde, there are other things to see in Fogo, and it's a place well worth a visit. Brava Island is the smallest inhabited island of the Cape Verdes. It's also the greenest. It's really close to Fogo Island and acted as a haven to Fogo residents when there was a massive volcanic eruption in 1620. At that time, the entire island of Fogo was covered in ash. It's a mountainous island, and so therefore, as a mountainous island, I was very interested in the walking opportunities. We had 2 days in Brava Island, and on the first day walked up to Fountainha Summit, 975 metres, which is the highest point in Brava Island. And here am I on the summit. The next day we walked down to Faja de Agua fishing village. The walk's along quite a well-made track and into the mountainous areas, and what you do is you pass some uninhabited villages and also one inhabited village. Then uninhabited ones, you can see, have all got this terracing, and there's a sign as to why the path is so well made, because this was previously an inhabited area. Of course, now that there aren't roads to these places, and with modern times, people aren't so keen to live in these communities. Although there is actually one inhabited village which you walk through en route, and then we got a taxi back along this rather interesting road to where we were staying that night. It was a really nice day. San Anteo is the westernmost island in Cape Verde. The island is of volcanic origin and is very mountainous. Tourists mainly come here to walk, and there are many great walking trails that allow you to explore the island. We stayed in Santo Anteo for a couple of days and took advantage of the walking opportunities there. We also took advantage of a local taxi to get us to the start of the most spectacular coastal walk on the island. This involved a hair-raising ride along a very narrow road with a severe drop on one side to this amazing village that had houses perched on the side of a cliff face. The road is not only very narrow, it's also very twisty and turny, which basically means you're clinging to the seat of your car, hoping that your driver's confidence that he has driven this road many times before is justified. The video gives you an idea of what the road was like, the narrow road, and also the mountainous terrain. But what it doesn't give you a feel for is just how scary that ride was. It was like scarier than probably the most scary fairground ride. And here we have the village that I referred to earlier, clinging to the edge of the kind of cliff face. You can also see all the terracing underneath the houses, and in the past these houses would have been agricultural houses where people actually worked the land. It's quite a fertile area, but people don't really work these kind of territories anymore, I guess just because it would be such a hard life. However, the net result of all of the previous people working and living here means that the paths that you're walking along are absolutely fantastically well-made paths for walking along. And you pass some uninhabited, ruined villages en route. So after the mountain walk, you then come down to the coastal walk, and this was just absolutely spectacular. Again, on very well made roads, but the views along the coast were just kind of spectacular, and I really enjoyed that part of the walk. You can actually have a look. This stone here, how did they actually build that wall in that kind of terrain all those years ago when they didn't have the sorts of equipment that we have nowadays? I just don't know, but they must have been really smart and clever people in order to be able to do that. So we stayed the night in a remote village before heading off the next day to walk part of the way back to the coastal town where we had left for our walk on the previous day. Again, you can see all of the terracing that's there, testimony to previous former days when these islands were much more inhabited and rural farming ground terrain than exists now. Nowadays, a lot of it's just in relation to tourism. Santa Vincente is a really pretty little island. Its main town is Mandela, and that is a port town, and it's got some really nice buildings that you can visit, and lots of cafes that you can sit around and drink coffee or what have you. We visited Santa Vincente twice. The first was just really as a stopover between islands because it's a port town. On the first occasion we took a taxi out and visited this fort, and then had a look around the village there, where there was actually a kind of plaque there, a statue for the slave trade. As I've said before in previous videos, the Portuguese used the Cape Verde Islands as a hub for their slave trade. On our second visit to San Vincente, we hired a car and we walked to the high point of the island. Well, actually, to be honest, we drove virtually to the high point of the island because there's a road right up to it, and then we drove right round the island to the seaside resort on the other side, which was really interesting as well. As you can see, the roads in San Vincente are quite spectacular, narrow roads with huge drops on one side and cliff faces on the other side, but the beaches and the whole place were absolutely fantastic.